Hi Flosstube, it's Helen D. I'm back with another tutorial. Today we're going to make a Tart finished ornament. It will be similar to this. This particular chart, this is one I made last year. This is Pocket Round December 25th by Heart and Hand. And it fit perfectly as a circle, and I finished it as a little Tart ornament. So we're going to be using this. I'll show you. This is the piece that I'm going to finish today. This is by Owl Forest Embroidery. I don't remember the name of the chart. I've had this one for quite some time. I don't remember the name of the chart, but I can list it below. So it's just this really sweet bird and some vines with some berries. So we're going to finish this today, but before we do, let's talk tarts. So a tart finish is basically just a circle finish, the same that you would finish any other kind of circle, and you pop it in a tart. And your tart can be almost anything. Almost anything round can work. This is your traditional Tart pan. These are made by Wilton, and they're actually two pieces because they're made for cooks. They're for cooking. If you were to use this, you would have to just make sure you glue this piece into this piece so it stays. That is your traditional Tart. I don't know how far across this is. A lot of the Tart pans I feel like are 6 inches, but I'm probably wrong. This one's 4.5. So this would work just fine. This that I always keep my tomato on, this is a candle pan. Absolutely, this would work as a tart. This is a pie plate. I got this years ago at Joann's. They always seem to have things like this in the baking section around the holidays. And I have finished a tart in this pan, and it looked like a little pie, and it was adorable. This one, some of them, the things you have to look out for is some things are very flat, and other things, if there's any depth to them, you just have to build it up depending on how deep you want your piece to sit. So that's another option. This is another candle pan. That would be perfectly fine too. This one that I did was one of these that is an ornament, and it's meant to go on your tree this way. This is how you see them. Around the holidays, several different stores will have these. Some people were finding these at the dollar store last year. If you turn it around, it's a tart. So that's the one I used for this. The one we're using today is actually from the Fat Quarter Shop. They put out these little tart tin ornament packs. These are only sold there. They're a set of 6, and I was looking at the package to see if it said the measurement. About 2 3/4. The way that I like to measure when I'm getting a good measurement is on the back, because if they're angled at all on the edges, if you flip it around to the back, then you can really get in there and get an accurate measurement. And typically, I don't use my ruler. I use my circle template. How many times have I pulled this out with you guys? So this one, here's 2 3/4. 2 3/4 is a smidge big. 2.5 is a smidge small. So it's kind of in between 2.5 and 3/4. Fat Quarter Shop for these also sells a pack of sticky board circles that fit right in there. So your work is half done for you. If I didn't have this, I would measure and be like, all right, 2/4 is a little big. I'm going to go with 2.5. I bet this is about 2.5. It's just a little tiny bit over 2.5. I would cut my 2.5 circle on a piece of mat board and just cut that out, and then I would have a mat board circle the right size. You can always, like I've said before, if you need to test before you cut out your mat board, cut a circle on a cereal box or any kind of a little bit thicker, thin cardboard that you have, and that way you can set it right in and test the size. This one has a little bit of wiggle room, which is kind of nice because I want to add some trim around mine. So I have my ornament. I have my mat board. In this case, it's sticky board. Either one is fine. Sorry, I'm reaching. Forgot my tape. So now we will figure out this ornament. I had already measured. I actually measured this before I started. I knew I wanted to use these little tins. So this one is stitched on an 18 count so that it would be the right size to fit in that tin. I had the tin first, so I was able to adjust. If I didn't have these little tins and I needed it in the bigger tin, which is about 3 inches, then I would have stitched it, depending on how much extra I wanted, I probably would have stitched it on a 16 count to kind of fill up that space. But in this case, it's on an 18 count. So the other thing that I used my template for is I cut out some batting. I use the Warm and Natural cotton batting, and sometimes I do this on camera, but I had to open a new package of batting, and it is a baby quilt sized, and it was a little unruly, so I did it beforehand. I cut out 2 pieces that were 2 3/4, and then one of them, in a very unscientific, non-circular manner, I just made a little bit smaller. So depending on how much dome you want on your tart, I'm going to use 2 pieces of batting. This one here, I think I only have 1, so it's not very domed. If you want that domed finish like you would have on the top of a drum, the way you get that is by cutting out smaller and smaller pieces of batting. So you would have your main size that would fit perfectly, then one a little smaller, then one a little smaller. If you want it even puffier, one a little smaller, and then put one the regular size on the top, and it kind of smooths out. That one helps smooth out the edges. I don't need mine super puffy. My tart is very thin, so I just cut out 2. So what I'm going to do is get my mat board ready. Because this one is sticky board, I can just peel this off. If I were using mat board, I would use a piece of the double-sided score tape, SCOR. Put a little piece of tape on there, just like we're going to do for this next layer, and just stick it on there. This tape I find right on Amazon. Ugh. You know this is the worst part. Get off of there. So this will just hold that other one in while I'm cinching. There we go. So I'm going to take this not quite circular one and just pop it right on the top. Then I have my stitching. I have my long doll needle and that heavyweight Americana thread I like to use from Joann's. And then we're going to do this just the same as we normally would a round ornament. I'm going to hold this up to the light, which I know you can't see, to get a rough guess of centered. So that way I can come around on the back and make it circular-ish. I'm not using interfacing because I'm not stuffing. There's nothing that's going to poke any of my stitches. So now I can take this. I like to start my needle on the side with the stitching so that everything starts and ends on the front, on the stitched side, and pull some of this through and just zigzag across about 1/4 inch. And I'm not planning on editing, so we're just doing this as is. It's a small ornament, so it should go pretty quick. I like to leave my thread on the spool so that then if I need more, I can just pull more off. I don't need to tie it off and start a new one. I just tie it off when I'm done. So these doll needles, mine is a 5-inch. It's made by Dritz, and they're pretty commonly available. Most craft stores would have them. A lot of the online shops have them. Amazon probably has them, but they probably cost more. I use this a lot in finishing. Almost there. Oh, we are there. So now I'm going to end with my thread coming out on the front. And then I have to switch needles because I can't tie a knot with that one. My handy dandy bent needle is the one I was looking for. Okay. So just because I have all this extra, I'm going to kind of just pull that through to use up some of my extra so I don't waste it. And I'm going to go in with the loose end, and just tie a knot so that I can take that. We'll do all our pulling from the other side. Get out of there. I'm all twisted. So we'll just tie a knot so we can cut this one off. Now I can open that back up. Put my padded mat board down. We can adjust after we pull it, so I'm not worried about centering right now. I'm going to take this thread and gently pull to close that up, and then flip around and see how off it is, which is pretty off. But then I can go in and move it around. If I had to, I could full on undo it. But usually you can push it right around with your fingers and center it up. So that's pretty centered. So now I'm going to pull a length of thread, cut it off, and then we just do that crisscross on the back to make sure we're holding in our shape. So we've done this on countless things, where we just go in, take a little bite of one side, and just pull it tight and kind of go to different areas to close up. Work our way around. And like I've shown before, I like to look on the front to see if there's any glaring like bumps, and then I make sure I hit that side to straighten those bumps out. This one, because it's small, you tend to get smoother when it's small. So I'm just going to make sure I have everything here. Whoops. I wasn't in there. All right, let's see how that looks. Looks pretty good. I got one bump over here. All right, so I'm just going to come under one of my little wrinkles, go under it again so that I have a loop and can make a knot. I'll knot it off a couple times. Now, if you didn't want any trim around your tart, you're pretty much done. You just need to pop it in there. I want a little trim on mine. So we have a circle, you have your tart, you would just glue it down in there. Got fuzz. I want a little trim on mine. So you could use chenille, cording, Ric Rak, Pom Poms, lace, whatever kind of trim you want. I thought I would do, because I knew this one had a little wiggle room, and when I went through my trims, I had the right colors. I'm going to do a double layer. This one is one layer, it's just Ric Rak. I'm going to do a layer of Ric Rak and then a layer of Pom Pom. This little bird will be extra. So to do that, I'm using hot glue for speed of use. You can use, again, whatever glue you like. So I'm going to take, I'm just going to cut off like a clean edge so it's not fuzzy. And I like to start not on the top, somewhere on the bottom, and I'm just going to kind of hold that around for now, just to make sure I'm checking my edge to see if I got it clean enough. So I'm gonna start not on the back one in case I need to cut that off, but one over, and put just a little dab of glue on this bottom part of my Ric Rak. And I'm using a bit of a thicker Ric Rak, a bit wider, so that way I have room to put the pom pom and you'll be able to see still the Ric Rak. So I go around and I just take that bottom wave, put a little dab of glue, glue it on. So just kind of sticking it right on there. I want as much of the Ric Rak showing as I can get, so that's why I'm kind of being careful. I'm kind of getting glue bits because I'm holding this in a weird angle. And then when I get back around, I will line them up and see if I need to do any trimming. This is why I picked a small one to show you guys, so it would take less time. But they're not difficult, and it's a fun ornament. It's a little bit different. All right, so we're getting there. All right, so we're back to where they're going to meet. So now I'm just going to look to see which one needs to be trimmed. And then I will have some glue strands to pick out. So this one is gonna line up perfect. That does not always happen. So I'm going to come behind so that my front one and my back one will kind of overlap, and trim that off. So now I'll have kind of a double layer on my very back one, which is fine. I'd rather have a double layer and hide it than kind of a rough edge. Wow, they never match up like that. Okay. So I have Ric Rak all the way around. Like I said, right here, it's double thick. You can't tell from the front. Then what I'm going to do, again, you could leave it just like that, and it would be beautiful. Because I had the right color blue pom-poms, I'm going to add them in. I went through already and took this is Lady Dot pom-pom, and I took it off the tape. I already cut it off the tape. So I'm going to kind of do the same thing here where I start on the bottom. I'm not going to start with that bottom pom-pom in case I need to cut that off. I'm going to start like 2 or 3 up, and I'm going to come in with my glue and just put a little bit of glue right here on the edge. And then go in there with my pom-pom. I'm going to need another stick, so I've got it ready. This one I need to do a little down so I can see what I'm doing, but I'm just putting a little line of glue and then pushing my pom-pom right down in, so that it's kind of pushing that Ric Rak out and tucking right in. I was surprised I had the right color blue. This must have been from a grab bag because I had just this tiny piece, no label. I don't know what it is, but it's perfect. And this is why you can see I like to use that larger Ric Rak so that you get just a little peek of it. If you use a little too small, then the pom-poms kind of cover it up. Maybe I won't need more glue. There is a right side to the pom-pom. You can tell the side that I pulled it off the tape and then the clean side, so I am making sure that I have the clean side up. And I kind of do the same thing when I get down here to the end. I'll make sure that my pom-poms line up as good as possible and then figure out where to cut it off and where to glue it down. So let's see. Now they're going to line up too. Because this end was a little fuzzy, I'm going to cut there. And then I'll have this clean edge pom-pom. So now I have to glue in both sides. And there it is. So if you look real close, you can tell. Just don't look real close. You'll be fine. So I'm done. I'm ready to pop this into my tart. Like I said, if you had something like this that has a thicker edge, it's going to sit up higher. So sometimes you have to take like little scraps of mat board and layer them up to kind of build it up. I've used scraps of mat board. I've used cheap plastic buttons that I had a bunch of, right, to just kind of build up some supports, so then when you sit it on, it doesn't completely get buried inside. As to how you attach it, you could, because these are metal, you could put a magnet here and a washer here, even though you're not intending to replace it, that would still hold it nice and tight. This one I'm just going to glue. I'm going to put a bunch of glue in here, and then I'm going to line this up within it. So I'm kind of just getting figured out. All right, this is where I'm going to need my extra glue stick. So the hot glue dries pretty quick. And it's in. Ooh, it's all warm on the bottom. So that one is done. You can replace the ribbon if you want. Like this came with this jute, but you could make cording. On this one I made a piece of cording. This one had a bow on it. I cut that off, or I pulled it off. It was just glued. This one, we'll wait and see if I decide to leave the jute or if I want to make a bit of a... I probably will make cording just so that's a little matchy-matchy, because that's how I roll. So there is your tart. It's a little puffy. Like I said, I didn't want this one to be super puffy because it was a flat tart. But if you want it puffy, you just add more layers. So I will link below where you can get these on Fat Quarter Shop. Like I said, these other things, just look around for anything that you think, I can finish in that. That's round. I can make a tart with that. I'll put the name of this chart and this chart in case you're looking for it. This one is on, in order to fit in here, I can tell I did this on a 32 count Vintage Country Mocha. This one was on an 18. Let me know if you have any questions, and have fun making all the tarts.